So picture this. It's September 1980, and Iraq invades Iran. The plan is for a blitz, a lightning-fast campaign that's going to reshape the entire Middle East. But what actually happened was something way, way different. It turned into the last total war of the 20th century.
Yeah, Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, was absolutely certain this would be over in a flash. He's looking across the border at Iran, and he sees a country in chaos, right? It's still a mess from its big Islamic revolution in 1979. All his intelligence was telling him, hey, this will be over in a few weeks, tops.
But that quick, easy victory? It never happened. Not even close. Instead, the invasion just got stuck in the mud, and it turned into this bloody, grinding stalemate. The war didn't last for weeks. It dragged on for eight brutal, agonizing years. It became one of the longest conventional wars of modern times.
And the cost? Wow. I mean, when you factor in everything, the destroyed buildings, the military spending, the lost oil money, the total price tag is estimated to be over $1.1 trillion. And that's in 1988 money. It's a number so big it's honestly hard to even wrap your head around.
So that's the big question we're going to dig into here. How did this short little war, this in-and-out operation, spiral into a total nightmare of a conflict that killed hundreds of thousands of people and basically changed the region forever?
Well, it really all started with a huge miscalculation. See, Saddam Hussein's invasion wasn't just some random act of aggression. It was a massive gamble. He was driven by this ambition to be the big dog in the Arab world, and he saw all that chaos in Iran as a perfect window of opportunity to make his move.
And to really get this, you have to understand how different these two countries were. On one side, you've got Iran. They're Persian, they speak Farsi, and they're a brand new Shia Islamic republic with a huge population. Then you've got Iraq, Arabic-speaking, officially secular, and way smaller, but led by the super-ambitious Saddam. We're not just talking politics here. These were deep cultural and ethnic divides.
And you can hear Saddam's whole logic in his own words. He's basically saying, look, Iran is a mess right now. Their military has been gutted, their economy is a joke. This is our chance. It's now or never. Because if we wait, they're going to get strong and come after us.
Now, if you just looked at the numbers on paper, the two armies looked pretty evenly matched. Similar number of soldiers, similar number of tanks. But those numbers hide a huge problem for Iran. See, their fancy American-made military was in total disarray. The new revolutionary government had purged, meaning fired or executed, a ton of its best officers. So they had all this great gear, but a command structure that was falling apart.
So Saddam rolls the dice and launches his invasion. But two of his biggest assumptions just blew up in his face. First, the Iranians, even though they were a mess, fought back like hell. And second, Saddam was counting on the Arab population in Iran's oil region to welcome his troops as liberators. They didn't. Not at all. And just like that, the invasion stalled, and the quick war was pretty much over before it even really started. With the Blitzkrieg a total failure, the war entered a new, absolutely horrific phase. It stopped being a war of movement and turned into a brutal, grinding war of attrition. Seriously, think World War I. Trenches, machine guns, and just an endless, bloody stalemate.
A key part of Iran's strategy here was this new group called the Bajij. These were volunteers, many of them just kids, filled with religious passion. They were given a little bit of training, a rifle, and a plastic key they were told would get them into paradise. And then they were sent running in human wave attacks, literally charging through minefields to overwhelm the Iraqi defenses with sheer numbers. It's horrifying to even think of.
And if you want to know what that horror felt like, just listen to this. This is from a guy who was a 13-year-old volunteer with the Bajij. It's a story about children watching other children die in the most awful ways imaginable.
And the cost of this strategy for Iran was just staggering. The numbers are still debated, but a good estimate is that around 500,000 Iranians were killed in this war. An entire generation was just decimated by this endless grind.
So with the fighting on the ground going nowhere, both sides got desperate. They started looking for other ways to break the stalemate. And that desperation is what pushed them to open up new and, honestly, even more terrifying fronts in this war, taking it far beyond the battlefield.
The war blew up in three big ways. First, you have the tanker war, where both sides started attacking oil tankers, which eventually pulled the US and Soviet navies into the mix. Second, the War of the Cities, a horrifying period where they just launched missiles at each other's major cities, killing civilians. And third, and this is truly monstrous, Iraq started using chemical weapons over and over again.
And internationally, Oh, it was a total mess. You had the Soviet Union and France arming Iraq, with countries like Saudi Arabia and even the US kind of helping them out on the side. But then you look at Iran supporters, and it gets weird. Syria, Libya, and Israel. Yeah, Israel was helping Iran because they thought Saddam was the bigger threat. It was this tangled web where who you were supposed to hate took a back seat to who you hated more right now.
But the weirdest part of all this was the Iran-Contra affair. Okay, get this. The United States, which was publicly against Iran, secretly starts selling them weapons. Why? To get some American hostages in Lebanon released. But wait, it gets crazier. They then took the money from those illegal arms sales and used it to illegally fund anti-communist rebels down in Nicaragua. It was a massive, massive scandal that showed just how weird the secret diplomacy of this war had gotten.
After years of this stalemate and escalation, both countries were just hitting the wall. They were exhausted. The end of the war was really defined by that mutual exhaustion. But it was also marked by one of the war's worst atrocities, and a ceasefire that, honestly, nobody was happy with. In March of 1988, Saddam Hussein's regime did something truly unthinkable. They unleashed chemical weapons on the Iraqi Kurdish town of Halabja. They used nerve gas, killing up to 5,000 of their own citizens, men, women, and children in a single day. It was just an act of pure, unimaginable brutality.
Just a few months after Halabja, Iran finally agreed to a UN ceasefire. For Iran's leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, who had sworn to fight until the very end, this was a huge defeat. He famously said that accepting the ceasefire was like drinking a cup of poison. That phrase, it just perfectly captures how crushed the Iranian leadership felt. Which brings us to the final big question. After all of that, all the death, all the destruction, all that money, was there a winner? Did anyone actually win this thing? Or was it kind of like that famous saying, a war where it's a pity both sides couldn't lose? When you look at the final scoreboard, it's pretty bleak. Iraq? They gained absolutely no territory and were buried under a mountain of debt. But Saddam was still in power, and he now had a huge experienced army. And Iran? They suffered way more casualties, but they saved their Islamic Republic. In fact, the war may have actually made it stronger. So in the end, neither side really got what they wanted. It was just a catastrophic, bloody draw. But to call it a draw feels almost insulting when you see the human tragedy. The cost was just staggering. And you can see it wasn't an even cost at all. Iran's losses were astronomically higher than Iraq's. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. Millions more wounded or traumatized. Just gone.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? The Iran-Iraq war didn't end with some grand peace treaty. It just ended because everyone was too exhausted to keep fighting. It proved that the Islamic Republic in Iran was here to stay, and it left Saddam Hussein in a really dangerous spot. Think about it. He's in charge of a massive army, but his country's flat broke from a war he started and failed to win. He desperately needed a victory, and he really needed money. And right next door was a very small, very, very rich neighbor called Kuwait, and the stage was set for the next big war in the Gulf.